Hey, so this morning, not going to take too long. Ryan's gone, so I'm just like, let's just cut it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm joking. But I do want to say that this is a different kind of message, right? John chapter 2, we are back in, we skipped ahead for Easter Sunday and Palm Sunday, so we were in John 12 and in some other passages. But this time we're going back. And I want to start us off in a way that's not typical for me, and it's asking a question, and it's this. Have you ever asked God for a sign? Hey, we have it on the screen. We're big time these days. Have you ever asked God for a sign? Just show of hands. Yes, right. Okay, wow, almost everybody in the room. Think about it for a bit, right? This is kind of a strange thing, right? Asking God for a sign. If you answered yes, the conversation probably went a little like, "Dear God, if you're real, could you please?" And then we fill in the blank, right? And some of us are laughing because sometimes it was probably something petty, like, "God, if this guy likes me, could you just please let him like this Insta story? Like I'm going to shoot my shot. I just need you to let me know, God. I'll take this as a sign." The ladies over here are like, yeah. I'm not even going to talk about Hinge right now. God, just please, like it says on his bio that he loves Jesus, has a relationship with Jesus, and there's like 10 other religions listed under there. I've seen, look, as a pastor to primarily young professionals, I have seen all of these. I get the screenshots. It is hilarious. But the truth is, right, we ask God for signs. Right? Like for some of us, it was something as silly as like, if he likes me, could he just like my photo? And then like it sends us over the moon. For some of us, it was a little more, not that that's not serious. I'm like, if you're desiring marriage and stuff, we're praying for that, praying that God would bless that. But for whatever reason, right, for some of us, it might have been a little deeper, right? Like, God, if you would just come through for me, then I will, and we fill in the blanks, right? For some of us, it's been, I will serve you for the rest of my life, right? Or for some of us, it's just like, if you do this, then I will believe in you, right? If you could just do this thing, give me a sign that you are there, that you are real. And for some of us, the sign that we've asked for is of great significance, right? We ask the Lord for a sign that maybe involved a loved one. Maybe it's a family member that you're just praying for, that they would come to know Jesus. Maybe it's a sign that, God, could you just please heal this person? And then we could know your power. We could witness your goodness, and we would celebrate these things. And so we end these pleas with a simple statement: God, give me a sign. And we ask for it. So the question begs itself again: have you ever asked God for a sign? Something of deep significance in meaning. Right? We as people, as a culture, we love signs, right? Because, well, naturally they give us direction. Right? They give us some insight into whatever it is that we need to move in, right? A stop sign gives us the direction to stop. Unless you live downtown or on the east side. Everybody just ignores that. Like, I'm witnessing it more and more. I'm just like, I've almost gotten hit 30 times because people do not follow directions. They do not follow the signs, right? A right turn gives us the direction to turn right, right? Some of us, signal lights aren't a thing, but we should do it because it signals, it's a sign to the other people so you don't hit them or come close to it. Out of anger, that's me. Sometimes I think that I'm doing really well in my walk with Jesus, and then I hit traffic, and then I'm just like, okay, I got to go back to church. I need y'all to intercede for a brother. Like, seriously, 1604. Anyway, but we're, as a society, we love signs, right? Even down to things like zodiac signs, right? Like, we were like, oh my gosh, I'm a Gemini, so this is who I am. Like, and it's just like, I don't know that that's just who you are, right? It's like me using the Enneagram. Anybody Enneagram people, right? It's like, I'm a 5. Yeah, I'm just a jerk. And like, well, that doesn't give you permission to be that way. Like, that's actually a sign that you should change something about your life. Like, I'm speaking out of conviction of my own heart. We all need to grow, and we all need to do better. But we love signs because they point us in a right direction. Right? It gives us some sort of path for us to take and to follow. So what do signs have to do with John 2, 1 through 12, and Jesus turning water into wine? The answer is simply everything, right? If signs are a means of providing direction, then Jesus' miracle or sign of turning water into wine is a sign that's revealing to the witnesses that he indeed is the Messiah, that Jesus is the one that the disciples should follow. So if you've been following along with us for any amount of time, we've been in a series in the Gospel of John for the last 6 weeks or so. And the Gospel writer is known as the Beloved, was one of Jesus' closest friends, and has written this testimony of who Jesus is for the community that would later receive this book. The gospel writer isn't pulling any punches about what he's trying to do, right? He says that the purpose of writing this account of Jesus' life and ministry is this. It's found in John 20:31. It says, "But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." Like if you've ever wondered what the purpose of the gospel is, John doesn't pull any punches. He says that as a result of this, he's clear that whoever gets this, that his prayer and his aim is that you would believe and that you would have abundant life in Christ. Because of this, the Gospel of John is loaded with meaning and symbolism and metaphors and rich language and really other things that would leave us in awe for a lifetime. I mentioned this I preached the first intro to Gospel of John, and I mentioned that in seminary, in grad school, I studied theology, and we went a whole semester, literally one semester on the first 18 verses of the Gospel of John. That was it. That's all that we studied, and it wasn't even enough. Right, so the Gospel of John, like the writer, is using incredible language and metaphors and pictures for us to just get a glimpse of who this Jesus, who is one of his best friends, actually is. But it's one of those things that though it is incredibly rich and deep, and we could spend forever in it, it's incredibly helpful reading at a glance. Right? It's incredibly helpful when we can just look at a tiny piece of the story and get a better glimpse and picture into the life and ministry of Jesus. The miracle of Jesus turning water into wine, or better put, the sign of the wedding at Cana, is no different. Allow me to explain that a little bit. The Gospel of John begins by stating truths about Jesus in chapter 1 that conveys that he was present in creation, that in the beginning he was there, that he created the world, that he was light, that Jesus became flesh, dwells among humanity, right? He's full of grace and truth. Ryan preached on that a couple weeks ago. And we get a glimpse into Jesus' life as he calls his first disciples in John chapter 1. Right? Jesus extends an invitation to a couple of fishermen, some people that weren't all that highly educated, and invites them into life with him. He says, "Come and see." To others, he would say, "Come and follow me." He gives them the invitation to a few who are skeptical, and we see even the skeptics come to believe that Jesus is who he says he is. That's what I love about Jesus. He offers an invitation to us wherever we are. We can come as skeptics and leave believers, right? That he welcomes us in. He says, "Come and see," and invites us into life with him. We see that in John chapter 1, but in John chapter 2, we see the ministry of Jesus finally begin. Right? Jesus, along with his family and his disciples, we see in the text that his mother was there. We can understand from kind of historical configuration of all these kinds of things that his family was there, is present with him. They were invited to this wedding. He brings along his disciples that he has just called into life with him. He's invited them in. He brings them to a wedding. They are enjoying the festivities of a typical wedding when suddenly the tragedy of all tragedy hits. They run out of alcohol. Right? They run out of wine. And no, if you're Baptist, grew up Baptist like some of us did, and maybe charismatic circles like I did, it's like, well, it wasn't alcoholic wine. It was. Okay. You can go ahead and try and twist history all you want, but it was. I've studied it trust me. I was like, well, here's what my Sunday school told me. Like, yeah, you're wrong. Like, all right. But the tragedy of all tragedies hits, right? They run out of wine. What happens next, right? It was the party foul, again, of all party fouls. And what we know from this story is that we're all familiar with it, right? Even if you're not a Christian or you're a skeptic, and we love that you're here and partaking in this time together with us. But even if you don't know much about Christianity, the probability is that you've actually heard this story before. What Jesus does next, that he turns water into wine. People hear, oh yeah, Jesus turned water into wine. Right? Now that's a God I would serve, right? Like it's just like yeah, I'm down to follow that guy. Well, if he could do that, I am in. What kind of wine are we talking? Like is this an expensive kind? It's not box wine, don't worry. No, but we hear this and we're like, okay, people are like, yeah, I know that story. That's a good story. Like that's pretty cool. And it's, Jesus turns this water into wine, and Jesus' mom, actually, Mary, makes Jesus aware of the situation. And Jesus says something along the lines of, this has nothing to do with us. This is not our business. Like, why are you letting me know this? This has nothing to do with me. He goes on to say that my time, or in other translations, says my hour has not yet come. Mary leaves it in his hands, in Jesus' hands, and tells the servant, just do whatever he tells you to do. Jesus calls upon the servants to grab the stone jars, which are used for Jewish purification ceremonies, fills them to the brim with water, and he turns it into the best wine known to humanity. If you've seen the Chosen series, you know how this all plays out, right? The master of the feast, the master of ceremonies kind of thing, who's a big deal, is like raving about how incredible this wine is. Just like this is like, for me, my first time at Garrison Brothers. I love whiskey and bourbon, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a gift from God. This is incredible. And it was something, I'm probably way more spiritual here in this sense. For me, it wasn't all that spiritual. I was with friends, so it was spiritual. We're fellowship. It's brotherhood, But this is an incredible moment, right? The wedding host is so impressed that he stops the ceremony to commend the people on saving the best wine for last. And they have wine in abundance to go around for the rest of the festivities that could last as long as a week. Right, this isn't just a one-day little 20-minute ceremony and then everybody hits the dance floor for a few hours and that's it. No, this ceremony would have gone on for about 7 days. So this is a huge deal that they run out of wine. Jesus, again, turns this water into wine. The disciples and the people that are serving are the only ones that actually get a glimpse into what happens. What they see is Jesus turns water into wine, his first sign. The disciples have not yet witnessed anything like this. They witnessed it, and Scripture says they believed in him. Right? For a little bit, they're just kind of following him along as this rabbi, this teacher. They think he is who he says he is, and then they see him do it, and they're like, oh, we believe. The passage in verse 11 says that this, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. What makes this passage so special? It's not so much that Jesus turned water into wine. It's that he, for the first time in his public ministry, manifests his glory to his followers, and he uses a sign to do it. This is the first time that Jesus actually steps into for other people to see a divine nature, right? That this is a God who can perform miracles. He's not just this teacher that people may have followed. The New Testament theologian Gerald Borchert says that the point of this story is brought together in verse 11. The words are simple, but the meaning is profound. The evangelists identified the action in the story as sign, not a miracle, like in the King James Version. In John, a sign is more than just a wonder. It is a powerful act for the one who has eyes to see, because it points to the reality of who Jesus is. This Cana story provided an epiphany, a manifestation of Jesus' glory. The theme of glory introduced in verse 114, where he became flesh and dwelt among us in John chapter 1, does not merely include ideas of bright lights and mythical halos, which is a common way for people to describe glory. But glory in John is derived from the Old Testament idea of God's kabod, which implies the mighty power of God, evidenced in epiphanies or perceived manifestations of that power. In John, the mighty God is to be perceived as acting in Jesus. The signs, therefore, point the reader to the reality that the God of the Old Testament has acted anew in Christ Jesus. Right? So this is us being revealed, like the disciples are this is being revealed in their very eyes, like before their very eyes, that this Jesus is in fact God. Right? That everything we heard from the blessing of who this Messiah would be in the Old Testament, he is able to do this, and he uses this miracle of turning water into wine to reveal to the people finally his glory, his divine nature. And we read this, though, right? And we think, like, that's a cool story. But how does a wedding in Cana and Jesus turning water into wine really help me? I get that. I was wondering that this entire week. I knew this was on the docket for a few weeks now, and I'm just like reading through this passage. I'm just like, okay, I get that. There's a lot of symbolism. How do we tie this all together? Like, how does this help the believer for today? Right? Like, we read that, it's like, cool story. God's powerful. How does that help me? What is there to glean from this ancient story of this whole thing today? And I believe that this account is a beautiful reminder that Jesus will oftentimes go to great lengths to reveal his glory to us, even when we cannot see beyond the immediate need or request we might have. Right? That Jesus will go to great lengths to reveal his glory to humanity, even if we're just caught up in the moment and we can't see beyond that. We see that this is true of even the people in John chapter 2. I mean, look at this text when you have some time. These people ran out of wine at a wedding, which we think now, and you're like, yeah, I mean, that sucks, but it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. We've all been to dry weddings before. Like, like they didn't pregame. Like, they didn't go in already, going there. They just showed up. And this doesn't seem like that big of a deal to a modern reader, but a reader in this time would have understood the weight that this would have carried. Again, I mentioned this a while ago. The wedding would have lasted up to a week, and these festivals and these celebrations were so intrinsically tied to Judaism that there were legal consequences if the things weren't up to religious standard. Right? So there would have been some severe consequences for this wine running out. Jesus uses this wedding to reveal his glory. One theologian articulates that when the Jews reflected on what heaven or the arrival of the Messiah would be like, they thought about banquets, and the wedding banquet was the foremost model that came to mind. Right? So this isn't just a story. Like, Jesus is very, very methodical in how he approaches his first sign and miracle. Right? Because these people would have understood, like, oh, this is tied to a messianic kind of identity here. So Jesus revealing his glory to the people would have had some serious ramifications. So running out of wine, again, was a huge deal that would have likely brought about legal action and an incredible amount of shame on the couple and their families. And what does Jesus do? He steps in to take care of it. Doesn't that sound familiar? Now, Jesus steps into the mess and takes care of the situation. The character and nature of Jesus is consistent. What he did then at the wedding in Cana, he did for you and me on the cross. He continues to do for us today, that he steps in, reveals his glory, and takes care of our situation. Jesus actually takes things a step further, and John is, again, incredibly articulate, that he doesn't just use any old jars, right, to kind of provide the wine for the wedding, but what does he do? He gets 6 jars that can hold about 30 gallons that were actually used by Pharisees for purification rites. Right, so these aren't just the jars that they had laying around, that these were intrinsically tied to ceremonial washing, which again points to what Jesus would do, right, with his blood that would pay for our sin. I mean, there is an incredible amount of depth to this passage. And we can see clearly that John is letting us know of just how great Jesus is and what he would do for his people from the jump. Right? And we're seeing a glimpse into the character and nature of Jesus in John chapter 2. And we read that, and it's just like, cool, he turned water into wine. And John is saying, no. Yes, but he's revealing his glory. He's revealing that he is God. Again, he uses these things. He used this to cleanse, that they used this to cleanse themselves. And Jesus was showing that it was him that would bring purification to people. It would be Jesus that would actually bring life in abundance. The author of the ESV commentary on John says that thus the master of the feast experiences what happens when Jesus invites others to eat and drink of what he offers. They may not know Jesus' identity, but the fruit of his work is beyond compare. Right? That the master of the ceremonies has no idea what has just happened. Only his disciples and a few of the servants do. Has no idea who Jesus is in this moment, but can't deny the fruit of his work. And that is a lot like our lives today, that we might not always, people might not always know who Jesus is, but a lot of times can't deny the fruit of followers of Jesus. That Jesus would come and offer us life and drink and say, come and follow me. And we cannot help but live out in this fruit of the Spirit. Out of the old jars drawn something new and better that can only happen as a result of the work of Jesus. And the same is true of our lives today. So as we contemplate about this whole story, we think about what's going on. The question that I think of when I was praying through this passage is, what would it take for Jesus to reveal his glory to me today? The reality is that we're all asking God for things. And if you're not, maybe you should. It's okay. Right? There is no request too big or too small for God. But we're asking God for signs. We're asking him to show up in certain ways. Right? This whole story was just a way to reveal God's glory to people. And I want to ask you in this room, if you're a believer, if you claim to be a follower of Jesus, this is more than just a story for you, or at least should be. That for some of us, we can remember when God revealed his glory to us in certain times in our life, right? Where God just showed up on the scene and maybe changed things, maybe changed situations. For some of us, it was like more gradual, right? For me, I'm hard-headed. Took me a little while. Took me a little while to get there, but God did the work and is still doing the work. But I want you to think about, what would it take for Jesus to reveal his glory to me today? Again, for those of us that are believers in the room, we've experienced this. And for us, it's more than just a story. For some of us, we were in despair and desperate need, and Jesus showed up in all his glory and met us in our moment to provide the best wine, right? To provide us with abundant life. In his provision, we got a glimpse into the character and nature of God. For some of us, we were just really lonely people. And God provided an avenue of community and friendship, and that led us to relationship with Jesus. For me, it was something similar. I remember my life before Jesus and really deciding to follow him in college, because I saw a group of guys that lived life, and their life was so much better. And on paper, my life was great. It was good, but internally there was something missing, and they just invited me into life. And through people, God revealed his glory to me. It led me down a path that I thought I'd never go. Some of y'all know my story. When my mentor approached me about joining staff, I said some words. And I was like, I will never do that. And I did that. And now, in the words of Justin Bieber, I will never say never. I can't believe I just quoted Justin Bieber. That was a bop, though, back in the day. It was a bop. I don't care. That song slapped. Yeah. But the reality is that we have God has revealed his glory to us, or maybe in the process of revealing his glory to us, even as we speak. And in that moment, we were met with the nature and character of God. Right? Maybe we were met by his love and his care and his affection, and our desires changed, and we saw how just our life began to transform. But the truth of the situation, at least for me, is that I often forget. I forget. I am a forgetful human being. Although I take notes of everything on my phone so I can remember and stuff, but I am a forgetful person, and even when it comes to the things of God, how God has shown up in my life. So how does God reveal his glory to us today? Maybe if you're a follower of Jesus in this room, maybe you just need to be reminded. Maybe you need to take on the practice of remembrance and just write this down. God showed up for me when. But the reality is that the world is a dark place, right? Like it doesn't take long to turn on the news and see wars and people at each other and people canceling each other and all these kinds of things. And it's easy to get caught up in that and forget about our identity in Jesus and him revealing his glory to us. And for some of us, we just need to be remembered because life has been so hard, right? Like life has been difficult. Maybe it's been a difficulty to make ends meet. Maybe it's been a difficulty to come out of like this COVID season and just be normal again. Like we just need to be remembered because life seems just like everything is going wrong, but we need to be reminded of God revealing his glory to us, and that eventually, in time, the hope of the gospel is he makes all things right. Right? That God would reveal his sign to us. So I want to ask you, in what ways has the glory of God been made known to you? For some of us, it was rescue, right? That is true of all of us in some form, but for some of us, we really needed God to rescue us from a place that we were in. For others of us, God showed up, and his sign for us was something along the lines of provision, right? That God just showed up for us in this moment when we were not expecting. Maybe we were praying for a sign that God, like, if you want me to do this, then, and then he does, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. Anybody ever have a story like that? Anybody? Yeah. I'll be honest. Like for me, this is a lot of my story. I was reading this last week and this week, and there was a point where I was like at the verge of tears, just reminding like my story is kind of a crazy one, and coming to faith in Jesus after even growing up in church my whole life. But I remember there was a time where I was just like really confused on what I needed to do with my life. And I had done so y'all don't know, my background, my undergrad degree is in journalism. Don't hold that against me. I'm start preaching, you're going to be like, fake news. I'm like, all right, chill. Like that. I only did that for a little bit. But that was my background, and I had a really great job offer out of college, and then I had this other offer to do ministry, and the ministry offer was like trash pay. I'll be honest. I was just like, how am I supposed to survive on this? Like, how am I supposed to live? And not only that, you had to raise the money yourself that you were going to get paid. Like, this is college ministry 101. If you're not familiar, it is a rough life because you're having to raise your own salary, and they cap what you can make. And and I thank God for that time. But at the time, I was pretty stressed, and I was just like, okay, I have this job here offering me an insane amount of money, and this is just like, I don't even know that I'd be able to like do anything. And so naturally, I didn't pray about it. I didn't. I said I was, and then I never did. And then I was to be like, okay, if God provides, then that's going to be the sign that this is what I need to do. If he doesn't, though, I'll just take the other job, which I took no prayer, no initiative. And it came to a point where I was just like, I felt convicted. I was just like, I have not given this a shot. I have this much money to raise, and all that's due tomorrow, or like 2 days. And I was convicted, I'll be honest. I was just like, God, I am sorry. We had a little prayer closet. It's kind of cheesy to think about now. But we had a prayer closet at our college ministry. And so I remember getting in that room, and I got on my knees and I prayed. And I said, hey, God, I am sorry. I did not do my part. I own that. I was scared. That I was in a place of fear. But here's where I'm at. If you really want me to do this, the silly signs, right? If you really want me to do this, this is how I pray to God, so don't judge me. I was like, I need you to make things stupid clear to me so I can't deny that it's you. Because I will find a logical way to say oh, that was just chance. That was circumstance. That just happened. And so I was like, I need you to make things stupid clear to me and show me that this is what you want me to do, and I need you to provide for me. So I prayed that little prayer in the prayer closet at the college ministry building, and within an hour, I get a phone call, and it's my mom, and she's like, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "Who died?" I was just like, "What happened?" You don't just call someone, "Are you sitting down?" That's typically not a good news call. And the conversation went something like, you'll never guess what just happened. And turns out this person that I'd met one time heard about what I was trying to do and wrote a check for my entire salary for that year. Dropped it off the house, didn't want to tax credit anything, just said, hey, we believe in what you want to do, and we want this to be a blessing. And I wept. I was just like, okay, God, you are real. I will serve you with all my life. I'm just crying in this ministry building like a baby, and I am just weeping about how, man, God revealed his glory to me from someone that I had met one time, a brief conversation. I was praying through that, I was reminded that this has happened to me multiple times. I don't know if you've known this, but we planted this church, Ryan and I, Ryan's in Mexico, living the Kenny Chesney life, and we did it in faith. We have some great partners in ACC and First Presbyterian, City Tribe downtown. I mean, incredible family. But when we took this journey, it was kind of like, what do we do? Ryan's salary was covered and mine was not. And so I went from, okay, I have a guaranteed salary here, and I don't know what's next. So I prayed. I said, God, I know that you're calling me to do this. I know that you're going to show up. I just don't know what that's going to look like. So I did what a normal human being would do. I prayed for 20 seconds and then went to Google and started looking at jobs. I was like, all right. I'm like DoorDash. I mean, I could squeeze that in between some other things, and that was the game plan. We were hitting the end of our time at ACC, and I was just like, okay, God, I'm just going to take this leap of faith. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to trust you. And I have some cushion, that can get me through. But in the meantime, I'll do the DoorDash thing. I'll, do everything. And whatever it is that you call me to do, I will do it. I just need to know that I'm doing the right thing. Because you start to question, right? Am I doing what God really wants me to do? I haven't seen him show up yet. I haven't seen him do this. And literally, I get a phone call from Ryan. Bro, what are you doing? Yeah, he's like, bro, you'll never guess what happened. And I'm just like, who died? Again, my mind goes to the worst possible places. And he says, and I'll say this because they're incredible partners, but he said, hey, First Pres heard that ACC was covering my salary, and they said, what about what about Izzy? And we communicated that we're going to have to raise that, and they said, no, we're going to take care of it. And so God has continually revealed his glory to me over and over. And the chances are high that if you're asking for it, he's going to do it for you. You just have to be reminded that the miracle itself isn't the water to wine in our lives. It's the miracle that Jesus is our God and that he provides, that he is who he says he is. God will reveal his glory to you when you believe or when you need. But the message of John 20:31 remains the same. That if we believe, that we have life in his name because he is who he says he is. Let's go to God in prayer.